Hey everyone, Nick Engvall here. Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you about some of the people that make the sneaker history community and this podcast possible. It's more important than ever to think about who you give your money to when you're buying clothing to go with your kicks. Our friends at Guilty Goods started their brand with a goal of giving back, especially to the communities that make sneaker culture possible. With every purchase from Guilty Goods, at least 10% of the proceeds are donated to organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, the Susan G. Komen Foundation, the Movement for Black Lives, and many more. You can save 30% on your order by using the code HISTORY at guiltygoods.us. Again, that's history at guiltygoods.us for 30% off, and you can feel good about your purchase knowing you're supporting a meaningful cause. Sneakers are all about presentation, and if you're like me, displaying your kicks at home or in the office is just as important as when they're on your feet. Sneaker Throne makes sneaker display cases featuring customizable LED lights, drop-side cases to showcase the entire side of the shoe, not just the heel or the toe, the whole shoe. They've also got display cases for trading card collectors and hat collectors. To me, it's the perfect way to display your collection. You can save at least 10% on your Sneaker Throne order by using the code HISTORY at sneakerthrone.com. That's history at sneakerthrone.com. If you're a Patreon supporter or a member of our Discord community, you already know about Kicks with V hot sauce and his small batch, locally sourced hot sauce. V has been one of the biggest supporters of sneaker history and the podcast since the early days. He's currently the defending champion in our community trivia nights competition. Kicks with V hot sauce has been a huge hit with the community. You can save 10% on your order by using the code SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. That's SneakerHistory10 at kickswithvhots.com. Now, you're probably here because you like sneakers, and if you join the Discord, you know our community is about so much more than that. Whether it's the marathon-like community calls, trivia night debates, the in-person meetups, or just sharing our favorite experiences, we found that although we have such different backgrounds, we all have some unexpected shared passions. Not only does the entire community look out for each other when it comes to releases, we're like a support group for life in general. You can join the Discord community for free by heading to the show notes of this episode. After you're done listening to this episode, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Now let's get into today's episode.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move! LeBron James with no regard for human life. Final seconds. Bryant for the win. Iverson against Gill. The crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
Friends and family, how's everybody doing? Welcome to another episode
Doing well.
of the Sneaker History Podcast. Franz here in an interview setting. His name is Michael Franz. We're going to call him Franz. That's Franz if you're listening. And in these type of interviews, we like to have a conversation with somebody where maybe you walk away from this listening and you learn something. So Michael, Franz, as we'll be calling it in the interview, how are you, man? How's life?
Good, man. I'm here with you digitally. Was just in person physically at your house, thinking that this was going to be a duet type microphone situation, but had to go get some gas and head back. And here we are digitally. Now we got the backdrop. Now we can do this back and forth. You explained that it would have been a little bit difficult to sit in the space that you're in right now and share a mic. I think it would have been intimate. But, that's just
intimacy
me.
is very accurate. I get gassy. So, honestly, that's why we're not sitting so close. But you did get to drop off what we're going to be talking about today. Listeners, if you're not viewing this, I'm holding a shoe in my hands from Friends and Family. Not and, but end family. I love that.
Like In-N-Out Burger.
That's the first thing I thought of. Literally. It's like, oh, In-N-Out. Duh.
Yeah. One of our favorite family-owned companies, you know what I mean?
It's one of the best things on earth, just like these shoes might be one day. So Franz here is a footwear designer, owner, creator, mastermind, however he wants to best define himself of these pretty little things right here. So Franz, I asked everybody first, what's one of your favorite shoes of all time? What shoe got you in love that ended up with this?
I think, I'm from Sacramento, so there were a couple shoes, I'd say I'll give them three. One, true to Sacramento was Dada Supremes, and that brand was very prevalent to my childhood. So a lot of patent leather and big chrome shoes.
Yep.
I remember the Spreewells, that brand was very kind of prominent in my childhood. I had the black and chrome pair that Chris Webber wore a lot on court, and wore those in my Jewish Federation League, and tore up the court. Loved them. And I'd say the second shoe I had a love affair with, because my dad had the pair. He had a pair of Jordan 3 black and cements, and he had a relationship. He was a general manager of some Acura stores in Elk Grove, California. They sponsored the UC Berkeley men's basketball team. So we were, fortunate to get kind of like thrown some PEs like Jordan Trunners and I think some 1016s back in the day. But one of the shoes that they just kind of had on hand for some reason was a black and cement 3. My dad was given a pair, and he ended up like using them to mow the lawn. And so I'd like watch him mowing the lawn, like beating these to hell. And he'd go shoot hoops in them too. And he wore them to the point that like the sole, like the air unit was exposed. Like he wore down the sole so much from wearing them. And like, he really wore down his ankles and those shoes. But yeah,
it's funny.
That was the second shoe.
It's funny because it's like nowadays parents showing their kids shoes or being around shoes, they're probably coveting them, right? They're like, oh, please, like I'm never letting these go. Like I'm getting my kid fresh. Your dad got you into shoes. Coincidentally, with something he'd go from the grass to the 3-point line in. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then the third one I'd give is the Adidas T-Mac 2. I really like the T-Mac line. I think that like the different design risks they took across their model line was so fun and refreshing and different as to like what we were seeing on the court. And I'll never forget that All-Star game moment where he wore the red shoe and the blue shoe. I mean, we've seen mismatches, we've seen what does, but like T-Mac predated all of that. And like, you know what I mean? I don't think he gets enough credit for kind of like wiling out as far as like the footwear colors go.
I strongly agree there. T-Mac was ahead of his time in many ways.
Definitely.
So,
and he had the ugliest shot that you wanted to emulate because it was just,
it worked.
You know what I mean? He made it look cool.
He was fluid. It didn't matter how it went in. It just went in, right? Mm-hmm. It's funny. Those 3 shoes, I can not directly see. Obviously, these are not patent leather or chrome, right? But no, I could see.
That's just what started the love. The taste
exactly
changed
right
with time.
But
you know what I mean?
Starting the love. But like you grew up in an area, and I'm familiar with Dadas too. A lot of our listeners likely are also. But like a brand who was started and took some risks, and I mean, you're following a similar kind of deal, right? As doing it on your own, right? Somebody at Dada said, "I'm going to make shoes. I'm going to make basketball shoes," and that's a beautiful thing.
Exactly.
I love. Can I take this out? I can. So we're here to talk about your brand, Franz Family. Your logo here is you with the shoe popping out of your head. Is this called the 001? Is that the model name?
Yeah. So it's the model 001. The colorway is the morning ritual. It's kind of symbolic of over the pandemic, underwent a lot of life changes. I was a traveling rep before who was, eating steak a couple times a week, having hibachi, eating sushi, drinking, a lot of the weekdays. I was a 280-pound individual. And when the pandemic hit and travel stopped, I kind of had time to work out and focus on myself and, kind of do some fasting during the day, start the day with the, green juice, banana, probiotic. And I started to feel a lot better as a person, surprisingly. All the whiskey and red meat, so weird. But yeah, those changes, really, really helped me. And, also creating a list every day, taking a lot of inspiration from Tom Sachs and the 10 bullets that he lives by in his studio. So some of those things were picked up. I do his line drawing every day. That's part of my ritual. But those changes gave me the inspiration and the follow through and the drive to actually get this shoe done because, as I I'll get into saying, like, there's so many steps that go into like making something like this, that every day you're kind of whittling down a list and like working on the tangible things that you can to push the project forward.
Mm-hmm. So morning ritual comes from the line drawing, the green juice, the banana,
Making your bed. Making your bed every day.
I think the banana here is obvious and it's kind of yellow, but then like, what other parts of this are reminiscent of your morning ritual?
So that tumbled green leather and the green outsole are for the green juice. That white, is kind of embodies that probiotic. The hairy suede is me just loving hairy suede. Just something I couldn't get away from.
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I had a pair of Solan Dunk SBs that had the hairiest suede I'd ever seen on a shoe, and like when I got them brand new, you could like blow on them, and you could see the tendrils of the hairs of the leather kind of blowing in the wind.
Tendrils.
And that was like a quality, kind of like level that I wanted to hit with my first shoe. And so the Korean pair that I have, which you don't have in front of you, this was the first sample. It had a little bit less hairy of a suede. And so when we went to Portugal, that's a thing when you're making a shoe, like, and you go through different manufacturers, different development studios, like they have access to different materials. They do have access to the same soles. So, you know what I mean? They do both have the Vibram connection, but when it comes down to materials, they're looking for the best match they could find. And so those were the best matches. But yeah, we can backtrack.
Let's go backwards then a little bit. I was just thinking the same thing. So these started somewhere in the universe as a thought, and then probably ended up as a photo or a drawing, right? How do you go? And I'll let you kind of riff from here. But how do you go from a thought in that brain of yours to what I'm holding in my hands? Like, however you want to go through that process, I'm gonna let you cook.
Yeah. So
let him cook.
I'll start by saying I'm 31 now, and I'll be 32 this year. But nearing my 30th birthday, a goal I had, like, you want to make a mark in a space that you love. And I thought I'd seen some people before me that had Jay Tips being one of them, doing an amazing shoe with the Nike Bespoke Lab, right? So, going in and spending $1,000 or over that to go in and kind of like pick out your materials, almost making like your one of one PE. And, should your storytelling be so great, like, maybe you're able to jam your foot in the door at Willy Wonka's factory here in Portland, Oregon, or Beaverton for that matter. But they closed the Bespoke Lab. So it kind of, made me sit back and be like, okay, well, I still want to make a shoe a reality. It doesn't have to be a Nike, it could be something totally my own. But what would that look like? Where would I start? And, being a traveling rep, like I said, I had an assload of Marriott points, like over $500,000, I think, something like that, like a lot of Marriott points. And at the time they had an iPad and an Apple Pencil on their rewards program. And so I was like, okay, I'll just spend the points. I'm not going to be staying in hotels or traveling anytime soon. Given like this pandemic's going on, like hotels were like not even seeing people at the time. And so I got the iPad, got the Apple Pencil, downloaded Procreate, and just started sketching, and was like, well, like what, while also like jumping in and looking at like all the, like one thing I started with was looking at my want list on GOAT and being like, what was present in the shoes that I wanted? What were elements that I enjoyed from that shoe? Like, and kind of like jumping down that hole. And then also saying like, what would the colors look like? What materials am I enjoying? That kind of thing. And it first started with a much chunkier shoe, like a much more skate aligned shoe. And here I'll kind of like show. This is the first page of the zine.
And you're not
but like that was
you're
the
not
first.
an artist, so I feel like people are afraid.
I'm not a trained artist. This is all trial by
Yeah.
fire. This is just somebody who like wants to learn and has curiosity and like understanding that we live in the internet age. So like there's so much out there for you to go and educate yourself with. Like I did the Fashion Institute of Technology's Yellow Brick Sneaker Essentials course to learn the ins and outs. You know, I just jump at opportunities that I see that, you know, can add any wealth of knowledge to like helping me apply those, you know, lessons later in life or later in the project. So it started with that drawing and then me saying like, okay, well, you know, if I want the differentiator at the time, I was like, the differentiator for my shoe is going to be a custom outsole. I'm going to be, everybody's just doing Jordan 1s and Dunks. Like that's all that was going on. I want to have a custom outsole and a full custom upper and just like, you know, knock everybody else on their ass. That was basically like my inclination, my desire to do. And so like I talked to a buddy, Larry Chogninu, who his past work is actually all on Nike.com right now. He worked with the Serena Williams design crew. He did their stash bag. He designed her socks for her last release that looks sick. But he's an amazing designer, amazing person in general, and a good friend of mine. And he has experience in 3D modeling and rendering. And so he helped me take that sketch and basically created an accurate render of the sole. And then at the same time printed that sole and, you know, gave it to me to be like, okay, maybe you can go forward to these manufacturers wherever they are and say, hey, I have an accurate sole, you know, like a model of my sole. What would it cost to get this done? And like, what would it cost to get the actual shoes sampled? What does the timeline look like? All that, and kind of like go down that road. And in going down that road, you know, you end up on places like Alibaba.com. You end up on places like there's a guy named William Lasry recently that's just been exposing manufacturers of big brands. Follow him if you have not yet. That's a plug for all of you. Robbie, can you hear me? I think you're muted, man.
I was muted. So I can breathe heavily when I'm excited listening to somebody talk. So I just don't want people to hear me breathing phonetically.
All good.
But no, yeah,
I've
seen that page describing kind of like what the stuff we like comes from. So that's a resource.
Mm-hmm. Like your some of your Kith products. Mm-hmm. Like now we know where those manufacturers are. So when the demand gets higher with this brand and I grow more, I can start to like delve into, you know, more creative product lines and manufacturers like that to do, you know, products like custom textiles and whatnot for the clothing that goes into the brand.
So hold that sample up again. Obviously the outsole you have there is not what we have here. Why is that?
So that is not what we have there. When I reached out to, and it was like 30 different countries, like Italy, Russia, China, Japan, Thailand, like I reached out to all these different countries trying to see like what the costs looked like. And then again, like what their access to materials was as well. And the majority of these manufacturers wanted to say like, hey, we have existing silhouettes. We'd love for you to just slap your logo on them. And I was like, that's not the experience I'm looking to offer. And it's not what I'm looking to do. And it's lazy, you know, like that is not like there are going to be easy shortcuts you guys can take to do, you know, to get your product to market. But at the end of the day, like it needs to be special to you. And I would not even be able to muster the passion to sell a product like that because it's not yours. You didn't do it. You didn't do the work to get it to where, you know what I mean?
No offense to Alibaba, but I feel like that's the kind of stuff you find on Alibaba. It's just random shoes that somebody slapped their logo on.
But there are very qualified manufacturers 100%. On that site because it's basically like a directory. You know what I mean? Like think of it like a giant ocean of different connections that you can try and utilize. But like, you know, it's not all of them pan out. communication is tough, stunted, you know what I mean? Like, again, you're also dealing with people that are maybe 8 to 10 to 12 hours ahead of you time wise. So you're going to be waiting days for your responses. And then you could send them IP that they turn around and say, well, he liked this design, but we're just going to say, fuck this guy. And we're going to take his shit and make it in our country because he's not going to know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like it's a dance. It's always a dance.
So, I mean,
of like knowing
you
like
broke this
what.
down for me in the past, and kind of on the same outsole topic. You just said you could have a shoe presented to you that you could just slap your branding on. But the outsole I found very interesting because Vibram listeners like myself probably see the Vibram logo everywhere, right? They're on so many different credible brands.
A lot of climbing shoes.
But like you broke down for me one time that like there's just unused outsole designs or, you know, outsole designs available for you. And then you then design the upper.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a crazy part of the story, right? Like, because I did go to Portugal and did that shoe dog style trip, you know, and went to Portugal and went to the manufacturers and saw, you know, like this guy showed me, here is like, think of like Costco, like the height of like the warehouse. And he's pointing out like, look at all of this. Like all you see are these giant metal blocks and they're all casts for these, they're all molds for these soles. And he's like, that's $8 million in just an archive of molds. So like me as a designer brand, I could make this, I could end up making my own sole, using it on a few models and then like saying, hey, put it in the archive. We're going to pull it out like in a couple of years, just like Nike will do with re-retroing a shoe every 6 years, right? They still have the molds. So the idea of the product becoming more expensive years later is pretty wild because they've already done the work. It's extremely easy for them to produce the product at that point. The pattern is made. The sole is made. You're just varying
the
materials.
demand is there. You have the scale. You have everything.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I get it because maybe it's like it's squeezing the resellers as well. So like you're probably cutting the fat, if you will, like from that entire industry. And then at the same time, you know, their legal team is going after, you know, tons of brands. So
navigating that
again
while making this is a dance.
Navigating that, like draw your own design because they can come after you. And if you don't have the IP in front of you to say like, hey, this is all time stamped, you know, this is all my IP. Like I have like hundreds of photos. That's another big reason why every morning you're seeing me take a picture of this spread, because this board behind me is just like IP that's growing. And to say like, hey, it's been there, it's done. You guys remember seeing it. You know what I mean? And if you don't, like,
I got proof.
It's all there. You know what I mean? Yeah, I got proof. I mean, I got the receipts. They're right behind me.
The 001, it takes a whole backdrop worth of stuff. I mean, you're trying to start a brand, right? So more than just a piece of footwear comes from that. But just focusing on this footwear, how do you go through the process of having a shoe sent to you from producer X, looking at it and being like, okay, that wasn't exactly what I wanted from you. I need, how do you work your way through different variations or variants to get to a final product?
So I'd say like, after I determined that, you know, hey, the outsole is going to be too expensive, right? After I'd spoken with the development studio that said, hey, candidly, you're going to be spending $10,000 to $15,000 extra to make your sole. You need to look at Vibram and or other sole suppliers to put on your shoe, and then you know, so see if you can find something similar in this catalog. I found the Vibram Fort Williams sole. This is a print of the Fort Williams sole, and that's the sole that we ended up using on the shoe. And, you know, so when I found this one, I was like, okay, I like it. I think it looks athletic. I think it looks sleek. But the design that I had at the time was chunky. It was a chunky skate shoe looking shoe. So when you slapped that upper on this shoe, it was like, it did not work. You know what I mean? It'd be like putting small tires on a Jeep Grand Cherokee or something. You know what I mean? Like, just, it didn't fit. And so I had to slim down that design and kind of retool the entire upper to fit this new sole. And so like when I'd come to a drawing of, you know, like of that sketch of saying like, hey, you know, I like this. I'm at a point where I like this. Let's run it. You know what I mean? Like, I like the sole now. Let's kind of work on a sample there. I went through a few different iterations, but like it starts with you sending them a tech pack, which, you know, a tech pack is a technical drawing. So like still a drawing. And this is a version of a blank one. And during the class that I teach, you know, a big portion of that is kind of executing your tech pack and thinking about like what your actual shoe would look like. And then you're going to execute it on your miniature model, which you have there with you in the stew. You can show that for the cam. So these 3D printed model miniatures, in the class, you would acrylically paint them. And then I've 3D scanned each of those models and made them available to use in augmented reality on your iPhones. So I was showing Robbie that earlier when I was in the house with him, but that is a really cool aspect of it. Getting back to making the shoe, I know there's a lot of aspects to this, but getting back to making the shoe, when the tech pack was executed, right? And let me pull up the, okay. Yes, those were the sketches the shoe went through, right? Chunky, slim down.
Getting there.
Slim down some more, right? And then tech packs, this is kind of what that looked like, right? So, you know, you're getting your colors on there, but at the same time, you're noting your materials in detail. You know, you've got your quantity, your size, you've got your tongue tag there. Like, you're really trying to describe as much detail as you can. After that tech pack goes to them, they then say, hey, we're going to go do some material sourcing and see what we can do to find the best matches for what you sent. You're going to then approve those materials, and then we can start on the upper pullover is what they'll call it. A pullover is when they don't apply the upper to the shoe yet. They've just made the upper on the last, and then they set the last on the sole. So it's almost meant to say like, hey, this is what it's going to look like. What do you think?
Stitching it to the outsole.
Right. Exactly. So like immediately the call outs were, hey, I didn't ask you to flip the F around. That looks really submissive and not athletic and aggressive. And so I had them flip that around. It looks a lot faster, you know, in the current iteration. Like I did have it facing backwards.
When I put on the side, kind of like the Nike swoosh has speed. It gives me strength. Kind of I think of like a mountain. I don't know why, but
strong like bull.
Or like rock, you know?
Yeah. But also like, you know, the cross stitch here, you can see they had the wrong color there. It's supposed to be like a you know, pale yellow accent stitch as well that you see on that final. The liner was white when it should have been that pale yellow. So there were, you know, like a good amount of mistakes on this first pullover. So, you know, I said, hey, don't even send me the sample yet. Fix that before you send it back to me. And so they did that. And that's when, you know, I ended up with this first Korean sample.
Which is a much lighter outsole, it looks like.
Yeah. And a funny thing was, right, they approved the design, but they're made in Korea, but they let me put made in America. And I'm like, you were making them in Korea. Why would you let me, like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys could have pointed out at that moment that, hey, we're not even producing in America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, okay. You know what I mean? I knew that the development studio was in the US, but their actual manufacturing was done overseas. And so, you know, I was about to be like lying to the consumer, and that was not going to fly.
That's pretty funny though, too.
So,
like, oh, you want to put chocolate on this vanilla ice cream? Like, no big deal.
Yeah, no problem. And so, you know, in getting that first sample, there were delays after delays and like some mistakes made. So to make it right to me, they made the second colorway as well, right? And executed that nightly indulgence colorway that first studio did. Unfortunately, the minimums were a bit high, as well as the price per unit. So I was kind of forced to go back to the drawing board and kind of look for other manufacturers and see who could reverse engineer that sample. That's when I found the team in Portugal. Told them, hey, I want to come out and see how the sausage gets made. I want to like do the tour. I want to see the factories. I want to see that, hey, you say that it's ethical and there are sustainable options for the future as well. I want to see all that in person and understand like what the capabilities are for the future of my brand and for future footwear. Like, hey, I know what we're doing right now, but this is only going to serve as inspiration for me to going forward. And, me to see their process and also have a respect for the work. Something that they explained to me, because we're going to be doing a pre-order model. It's going to take 12 weeks for the team in Portugal to produce the shoes. But, understanding that like when I was going through the sampling process, they explained to me like, hey, it's going to take some time for them to get your sample done. Because what I didn't understand was that when these factories are running, they're doing one SKU all day, like 1,000 times.
They're not mixing uppers,
in the same sole. They're not mixing in. So for you to ask, hey, I'm the American snowflake here that wants his shoe done this week. You know what I mean? Like, I need it done this week.
No.
Like, that's kind of a tough ask because they have a history with clients that have orders thousands of times bigger than yours that are consistent money that's coming in that they already have a relationship with. And you're asking them to halt that production process and tell each of those people along the line, hey, I need you to do this completely differently. It's like asking someone to reinvent the wheel like one time and then go back to the way you were doing things before. And so like to understand that, like I have a newfound respect for like the labor that goes into these things and also the turnaround time that they go through to do these things for me. Right. Like I know they're jumping through hoops, but like to see it firsthand and to like know that, hey, like they have your best interests at heart. Like they're doing their best. But
that's crazy to think about.
Hundreds of people's jobs are involved in the production of one
I've never
shoe.
once considered, obviously we know there's probably a machine that stitches. There's probably something that presses, the operations.
And there are some videos on my Instagram actually of like kind of showing the tour of the factory and like seeing not my shoe getting made, but another brand's product, like kind of going through that process and seeing like there are like so many steps along the assembly line before that shoe is made. And we just think like, oh, it's a machine that just boom, boom, boom. Like
you wouldn't think that at all.
There's so many people that touch,
and you wouldn't think that you have to do one shoe at a time, a trillion, and get the whole site, get it all done at once. Because, like you said, there's a room full of tall ass room full of metal lasts. Right? There's so many people that have to go. Like, you wouldn't keep taking one off and putting it on, one off on. No, you do them all at once. Next, all at one. Next.
Yeah,
and that's probably why. Let's think really abstractly here. Like a Nike shoe tag, right? The shoe's birthday was probably 9 months before you have it in your hands. That's not because they were sitting on them for 9 months, probably because they were like 9 months out from, Yeah,
I mean they have a backlog of people who are probably, doing a quality check on thousands of pairs a day that they're having to approve and say like, oh, this one meets our inspection quality, or no, this goes B grade and this goes to the employee store in the sales section, or you know what I mean? Like,
so you find
all those things.
So
happen.
You find the team in Portugal who's able to then make you more, if not exactly what you envision.
Well, first, they did their first rendition, which I showed you, and upon looking at it, I was like, guys, I think it's. I think that there were some changes made, right? Like there was a chunkier back heel.
The triangle.
The logo placement was a little bit different. There was this was pretty chunky here. And, like you can see like that line right there is like, goes like here. And like here it was, just a pretty big divot. And then on top of that, I was like, is there something off about the sole? It looks different, right? And they were like, no, it's the same sole. And I said, well, look close. It looks like there's like a continuation of this line here. Maybe it's just a defect that's just on that one shoe that you showed me a picture of. And they said, oh, you were right. It's a defect. But it's not a defect. It's actually a cycling version of the sole. That's equipped to be ready to go, jump on your bike and snap in. So, that's the reason that the sole had a little bit differences, right? Was there's probably some more structure in there to like handle the beating that you're putting, the tensile strength of a shoe through when it's pedaling hundreds of miles or et cetera. You know what I mean? So, but that was also like a happy mistake because it was like, hey, now I know that we have the capability to, outfit a cycling team with a limited run of these shoes, in another colorway in the future. Like, that's pretty cool.
We're trying to talk when we saw them in person. Like, that could be a whole thing. Franz pedals, right? Who knows? Yeah. But, so, I mean, like you just described, you don't just instantly find your producer and have your spitting image right away, but ultimately you do get there.
It's all communication. You know what I mean? It's so much, like just being as clear and concise as you can and exactly what you want and sending as much reference as you can too. Right. Because like, if I had a suede that I liked, that you could mail them that shoe, even if it's another brand's shoe, they can walk around with that shoe in their hand and go to these, facilities and stroke the furry walls and find the best, the closest sample to like what you're really looking for. And the possibilities are endless.
You have the shoe, you have a second colorway we'll discuss. But you now have the shoe. You talked about going on a pre-order method. So then now that you have a shoe, how do you get more of them? And then how do you get them to people? So, in order to, in starting a new brand, like you have no idea, what your customer demographics sizes are. Right. So for me to make an uneducated decision and say like, hey, I'm going to go make 400 pairs of shoes and I'm going to sell every pair. Like you could get stuck with a lot of odd sizes, right? So you don't want to be sitting on too many shoes from the jump, right?
No, I mean, that's a big part, like a big flaw that I've already, I've made that mistake with other brands I've had in the past, placing the big order and then having all this inventory that you're sitting on, that just is a quick way to crash and burn your brand. So, getting to start small like this, doing the pre-order, getting pairs out in the wild, while at the same time, like, building that analytic of like understanding, like, what sizes are all of my customers? I have no idea right now. So that's something that we'll be able to gauge for this first release. And then hopefully, going forward, we'll be able to build around that with future shoes. So,
could you imagine finding a real foothold with women's footwear, and it's like you need a whole bunch of size 5.5s, and you're just like,
I mean,
size 9.
That's what's so, exactly. Like I did not want to be sitting on a bunch of inventory like that, but it was great when I contacted Vibram and like getting that sole kind of nailed down and understanding that like I can produce size 4 in that sole all the way to a men's 14. So like, I guess a men's 4 is a women's 5.5, which that's still pretty small. It covers a lot of the small footers. And should this shoe be a raving success, like I could tool the design to another more simple sole for, an even smaller foot, right? Mm-hmm. That's what Nike and Jordan and Adidas, all those big brands do. When you look at like the toddler size shoe, the sole is always different. It's never an exact like shrunken down version of like what you and me would be wearing. You know what I mean?
So you want to have the ability to tool in any direction with like the Jordan stuff, right? Like the kids' outsoles aren't. Why waste the money on having an accurate Jordan 1 midsole for a toddler? Like, nobody gives a crap.
Exactly.
The toddler does not give a crap. But so, I mean, you're starting with one colorway, right? We saw there's a second one based off like your nightly ice cream indulgence. But this first morning ritual, one pair of shoes, maybe some. I see you wearing a hat. I'm wearing a T-shirt, some accompanying items with it. I'm guessing around drop time. With the shoes.
I mean there'll be. There's 2 hats. This hat will not be available. There's 2 like puff vinyl hats that match the colorways of the shoes that are over here, and they will be available on the site. Boom, boom.
Very clean. And that's all to go with the shoes.
Yeah,
I mean,
all
so
to go with the colorways. And then there's some merch behind me on hangers. There's a crew neck sweatshirt. And then there's 3 T-shirts. I've also got some socks that are in development that'll be done by the end of February. The same manufacturer that does dad socks, which is a fantastic product by Trinidad James. Such a great product. So I wanted to go straight to the source, make the best socks I could. Hence, so we'll have those in a month.
I also know what dad socks are, but never had a pair. I'll have to check them out too.
Got to check them out. It's like Gucci print, but with the word dad instead. Very, very fly. I'll also have the printed zines available. 28 pages of lore on the brand. This is a logo that'll be on the back of the green T-shirt that'll be available. It's a play on the Amy Hardware logo. That's a Northern California staple. Something that I saw a lot because me and Robbie, we were both swimmers growing up. When there's tents at these swim meets, they got to weigh them down with buckets and water-filled buckets. All those buckets were Amy Hardware buckets. So that logo is emblazoned in my mind. I loved it. Loved the overalls, kind of like that hardware look. But I put my head on there and my hat on there. Gorgeous. If we build it, they will come.
That's what she said.
Episode title.
Shout out to Michael Scott. No, I mean, so I'm guessing those processes around the clothing and the hats and stuff are similar to that of the shoe, right? Trial and error, finding the right teams to make it,
exactly,
sourcing the materials, et cetera, et cetera.
And I was lucky enough. I got a team here in Portland that's going to be handling my fulfillment. Shout out Morel Inc., my boy Mario over there. Great
Lovely
people, family-owned operation over there. They'll be shipping my shoes and all of my products out of Eugene. So when the shoes finish in Portugal, they get shipped here to America. They're going to come to me. I'm probably going to personally sign every pair here in the house. And then I'm going to give them on to my Morel Inc. team. And they're going to fulfill all those orders and ship them out to customers. So yeah, that's kind of how that process goes. I've in the past tried to ship everything myself, and I can tell you it is not fun.
Oh, hell no,
it's
not.
A lot of drives to the post office or UPS or whatever that is. So this kind of business model is going to be a lot better, having a team that can handle that for me. They've also handled the build out of my site, which will be coming out here shortly. That pre-sale is probably going to start in the next 2 weeks. Robbie, you'll be getting
for the
password.
001.
Pre-sale for the 001. I think.
What is the price of the 001?
001 is going to be $250 US. When is this episode dropping? So I'll be, I could drop a morsel here if so.
Before, I mean, when are these coming out?
In the next 2 weeks, probably a week or two, could be even sooner. But if it's going to drop this week, I could give the site password on the pod right now.
Yeah, go ahead and give it. Why not?
Okay.
If you have it.
It's going to be, I got it. It's going to be good morning, all lowercase, one word.
Good morning for the site password. We'll now purposely try to post this around that time. So Franz, Michael Franz of Franz and Family Footwear. We appreciate you giving us the lowdown. I had no idea how the hell a pair of shoes even comes to fruition. So thank you for giving that to us. Where can they follow the brand? Where can they, what's the social handles?
Social handle for me is at Welcome My Franz. Social handle for the brand is Franz and Family Footwear. I did want to add one more thing I wanted to share.
Of course.
Like a big part of the brand is, understanding that like Robbie knows as well as I do, we want to be on the friends and family lists of these shoe brands, right? Mm-hmm. We want the product sent to us, that intimacy feeling, getting the special box, the special packaging. I want, every customer to kind of feel that energy from this brand from day one. So there will be, a special box. I've also hand designed that on the iPad. I made this out of paper, and then I X-Acto knife cut it out and put a little transparent window there because that's what the box will have. There'll also be a little cutout there for you to kind of like put your finger in and touch the tumbled leather logo, try something new. Here's a little representation of that box in 3D form. Got the little size tag on there. Every customer is friends and family, a brand, and then bringing the love
that
back
is
to
so
sneakers.
Good. Yeah, I held that earlier. And it's
that's
like,
what it's all about.
when you see the little mini cars, it's like a very similar vibe, that little miniature.
Yeah.
It's just
Hot
fun.
Wheels,
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, we're excited. We'll make sure that the people know where to buy the 001. The entire time we've been talking, I've been enjoying them, looking at them. So
yeah, I mean the materials, it's just crazy having them in hand. Like as a kid,
yeah, no,
you dream this, but like you don't know what's going to happen. You hope.
Yeah,
but here we are, man. Shoe in reality, walking around Portland. Land of these footwear Goliaths, wearing my shoe. It's crazy.
Bringing the love back to footwear, back to sneakers. Pardon me, bring the love back to sneakers. Well, sneaker listeners, thank you for being here. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff at Sneaker History, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
Peace.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.